If you've watched any of my videos in the past, there's a good chance that you've seen one of these new ads for the Sandbox. Targeted primarily at Roblox players and developers, this ad campaign takes the questionable approach of directly calling Roblox an inferior product. A bold move, to say the least. I already reviewed the Sandbox over a year ago, and my conclusion was that the game is a disaster. It's a janky, boring mess that seems to exist only to attract corporate partners and Metaverse speculators. In short, the game was woefully unentertaining. But now, they must be getting desperate, considering that they're paying Roblox YouTubers to do their ad reads. Nonetheless, a year has passed, marking the second anniversary of the Sandbox's alpha launch. With a $4 billion valuation and hundreds of millions in venture capital funding, it would only make sense to expect a high-quality experience, especially when they so brazenly claim to be a better game than Roblox. Without further ado, let's dig back into the Sandbox and see how the Metaverse has evolved over the past year. I can't wait.
Mom, we've got a problem.
This is an article called
My wife of 4 years gave...
You're watching John.
The Sandbox is a PC-exclusive game owned and operated by the infamous Animoca Brands, a Hong Kong-based venture capital firm focused on Web3 projects. Web3 being a fancy label for NFTs, cryptocurrency, and other associated technobabble. Pitched as a game to topple the industry titans of Roblox and Minecraft, the Sandbox primarily focuses on user-generated content, specifically custom characters, objects, or games, which they refer to as experiences. I've only played Roblox a handful of times, but I'm well aware of the freedom the platform offers for developers. People are making some pretty impressive things using Roblox, and there's plenty of opportunities to monetize your creations, controversy notwithstanding. This is where the Sandbox attempts to get a competitive edge. In their metaverse, you create content that you truly own and can monetize freely, thanks to the implementation of cryptocurrency. But I could own a Lamborghini, a paperclip, or a pile of manure. Ownership alone isn't exactly a great value add for the consumer. It's gotta be an interesting game, something fun, something people actually want. Otherwise, why would anyone care about owning it? Before entering the Sandbox, you'll have to create an account. I understand if you want to try the game out for yourself, but allow me to warn you first. Once you've given them your email address, you'll begin receiving frequent emails not only from the Sandbox, but from their partners and sponsors as well. Reading from their privacy policy, we disclose personal information to our affiliates, to our third-party service providers, and to third-party sponsors of sweepstakes, raffles, contests, or similar promotions. As you'll soon learn, the Sandbox relies heavily on corporate partnerships and sponsors to stay afloat, so collecting consumer data is an integral part of their business. Understandable, I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do to make money, but there's no way to opt out of these emails. You can unsubscribe from them, but that didn't seem to work too well, because within a few months, I started receiving them again. There's also no easy way to delete your account, or to request them to delete your data. You'll have to send them a formal request via email if you want to do either of those things. Anyway, if you do decide to try the game, don't say I didn't warn you. After we create an account and are assigned a random character, a prompt appears. Where do you want to start your journey? Create, play, or explore? Well, play, of course. The Sandbox is built in the Unity game engine, and while it's marketed as a competitor to Roblox, it's really not that similar at all. Roblox itself is a game engine intended to be relatively easy to use for beginners. With support for Lua scripting and standard 3D model file formats, you could theoretically build just about any type of game using the Roblox engine. The Sandbox, on the other hand, is a complete game on its own. The Sandbox Game Maker is advertised as a no-code game maker, but things created with it play more like mods of the base game than something standalone. This leads to almost every experience feeling exactly the same, and designing anything other than a platformer collectathon is gonna be an uphill battle. But why tell you when I could just show you? The first experience we're brought to is, big surprise, a platformer collectathon. The Cooniverse World Champion experience showcases a crowded city celebrating Argentina's win in the FIFA World Cup. However, no sports will be played here. This is just a platformer. Try your best to collect all of the stars while navigating some of the most frustrating platforming ever imagined. Poor collision detection, inconsistent movement speed, and a lack of a shadow to indicate your landing point ensures that you'll rage quit in record time. But don't just take it from me. As one player expressed in chat, what are we supposed to do here? Despite the presence of this chat box, this is actually not a multiplayer experience. Each player is sequestered to their own instance, so you can't see the other players, but you can communicate with them. Experiences in the Sandbox can either be multiplayer or single player, with a vast majority falling into the latter group. This was a point of confusion for me when I reviewed the game originally, as multiplayer was not available at the time. I thought that the Metaverse was a single-player game. It still is, primarily, but it does support multiplayer. That is, if you ever encounter anyone. Unimpressed, I depart this experience in search of something that doesn't involve collecting objects randomly placed around a map. Next up, the Junkyard Dogs experience. After a brief exposition dump, I am given a series of objectives to follow. Directed by markers on my HUD, I walk around the world interacting with whatever I'm told to. This is the exact same gameplay loop that bored me to tears a year ago, and I didn't make it very far before the indicator was telling me to go outside of the map. This is supposed to be a Roblox competitor, but so far, every experience has been the same crappy gameplay with little variation aside from asset choices. Returning to the Sandbox's website, we can take a look at the map of the Metaverse. I'm sure you're sick of hearing that term, although I haven't heard it too much since 2021. I think that fad kind of already died, and due to the reduced competition, the Sandbox has adopted this title for themselves. The Sandbox is the Metaverse. Plain and simple. What are some of the things that you notice about this map? Well, it has a ton of empty space, and most of the biggest plots seem to be nothing more than digital billboards. The original goal of this map was for it to serve as a hub for playable experiences, with landowners able to build and monetize the content published to their land. However, as you can see, a vast majority of the purchased plots do not have games. Some of the descriptions express an intent to build a game in the future, but the majority of them are nothing more than advertisements. These plots of land were immensely valuable during the big Metaverse bubble of 2021, selling for thousands of dollars apiece. In what was a genius business decision by the Sandbox, they targeted large brands and offered premium real estate, promising a permanent spot on the game's homepage. However, many of these spaces have since been listed for sale, or just left abandoned, as they reference expected launch dates that have long since passed. One excerpt from their pitch sheet to potential brand partners reads, "When you join the Sandbox, you also join Snoop Dogg, Gucci, Ubisoft, and more than 400 other brands, where entertainment and culture meet the next generation of creators." Yeah, I'm sure everyone remembers the Web3 pioneer Snoop Dogg and his Snoopverse NFTs that sold for tens of thousands of dollars. Owners of these Sandbox-promoted NFTs were promised exclusive access to this experience, including tickets to a virtual Snoop Dogg concert. Now, it is 2024, and there still hasn't been any announcement regarding the Snoopverse's expected release date. These NFTs sold for as high as 16 Ethereum in December 2021, a value of about $60,000 US. Now, you can get one for as low as $182. And remember, I was told that it was still early 2 years ago, and to get in before the rocket takes off. Did I miss something? Am I too late now? Well, clearly, some people found value here, as one individual spent almost $500,000 to buy the plot of land adjacent to Snoop. To this day, neither plot has been used to host a game, and now the best offer that they can receive is about $500. At this rate, Metaverse real estate might be a worse investment than just throwing your money in a bucket and lighting it on fire. At least a fire can keep you warm. Of the 123,840 publicly available plots of land, only 594 have been used to publish an experience, an impressive utilization rate of just below 0.5%. The most entertaining part of the Sandbox thus far has been looking to see which brands were foolish enough to purchase imaginary real estate. Ulta Beauty, Binance, Atari, Opera, Gucci, and Time Magazine. This strange list seems to go on forever. FaZe Clan paid for this giant plot of land. No wonder why they're nearly bankrupt. Any of you guys know how I can contact FaZe Banks? I think I might have an exciting bridge investment opportunity for him. But let's give some more experiences a try. I'm sure one of them is bound to be interesting. Okay, Era's Game Land, and it's multiplayer too. Immediately, you'll notice the Sandbox's lengthy load times. Despite having the game installed on an NVMe SSD, it can take anywhere between 1 and 3 minutes to load an experience. Given how quickly you'll get bored and quit each one, it'll be a constant annoyance. Era's Gameland is a multiplayer experience that features a few simple table games, recreated in the Sandbox. Connect 4, Rock, Paper, Scissors, and Yahtzee are all playable in one of the most janky and overcomplicated formats you could imagine. There was, surprisingly, another real player in this experience when I joined, but they gave up and left within 15 seconds. Exploring on my own, I attempt to play the available games, at least to see how they work. Since the Sandbox is very pigeonholed into a specific type of game design, building something different is going to require workarounds on top of workarounds. It really feels like you're playing something that the game was not designed to support. For example, to play Yahtzee, you run up to different buttons and press them to perform the different actions, like rolling or holding the dice. Plus, the game doesn't keep your score or differentiate between player turns. The whole thing just runs on the honor system. Of course, this could just be chalked up to being a poorly made experience, so let's not be too quick to blame the Sandbox. Regardless, this is pointless without another player, so on to the next. The subsequent experience I visited was created by an individual named Nier, and it appears to be a shrine dedicated to himself. Seriously. This experience, labeled the hardest platforming challenge in the entire Sandbox, allows players to learn about the many achievements of Nier, who is the author of multiple World of Warcraft PvP compilations. It even features motivational quotes by the man himself.
If something is impossible, it just means that it will take some time before it will be possible.
Truer words have never been spoken. As someone who's played World of Warcraft since 2007, I can confidently say that this is an entirely new level of cringe. The inflated self-worth that would lead someone to sell a screenshot of their login screen for $23,000 is beyond me. It would seem as if there's never been a single offer on any of his NFTs though, and he's continued to relist them for sale for the past 2 years. This Sandbox experience, built on a plot of land that cost at least $500, is nothing more than the icing on a cake of delusion. Alright, that was a bit of a tangent, but this is the average level of quality you'll find when playing user-created experiences in the Sandbox. Borderline shovelware, existing solely to direct traffic to another website where you can buy exclusive NFTs. Many of these plots link to dead or abandoned projects, perhaps because they were scams. But due to the immutable nature of the blockchain, these will remain forever, serving as a permanent reminder that wealth is a poor indicator of intelligence. Next up, we have the Pororo the Penguin experience. Apparently, this is a South Korean children's show, targeted at kids between the ages of 5 and 7. Maybe this is why I've never encountered anyone in real life who plays these crypto games, because they're still in the first grade. This is by far the largest and most complex experience I've seen in the Sandbox, made apparent by the disastrous performance. However, it's still nothing different than what I've already played. Wander around a massive play area, picking up items and talking to NPCs, all while suffering through the game's atrocious platforming and severe rubber banding. I think I'll pass. I tried a few more experiences, all chosen at random. Now, there's no way to sort by most played, but that might be intentional, as it seems that the average play count on most of these experiences sits in the low 1 to 2 digit range. That's because most of the Sandbox's already small player base couldn't care any less about the user-created experiences. Instead, they're focused on the game's play-to-earn aspects, found under the separate Events tab. These events are hosted by sponsors of the Sandbox, and participating in them gives you a chance to win a share of a prize pool. Essentially, you're getting paid a few bucks to sit through a half hour of advertising and product placement. In order to be eligible for a reward, a player must complete a lengthy KYC review process. KYC, or Know Your Customer, is a legal requirement in order to obtain cryptocurrency, due to its involvement in money laundering, human trafficking, and black market drug trades. This process involves uploading a scan of your face and a copy of your passport. Due to the data collection required for this, only users over the age of 18 may be rewarded in these events. Considering that the target demographic of the Sandbox appears to be children, it seems like they've shot themselves in the feet by choosing to use cryptocurrency. But that's their problem, not mine, and we can still play one of these events despite our ineligibility for rewards. AIA Carnival proudly presents Path of the Legend. Embark on a mythical journey of self-discovery with AIA Carnival. Similar to the previous experiences, this one begins with a series of breadcrumb quests. Talk to an NPC, get a hint, and walk to the indicated location. Climb the roof and punch the enemies, our first foray into metaversal combat. There doesn't appear to be a distinct animation between punching or swinging a sword though, so it kinda looks silly. Wait a minute, is this not just Link's attack animation from Breath of the Wild? Anyway, the AI enemies are a complete joke, made even worse by the aforementioned poor network quality. Their pathing is pretty bad as well, and as long as you attack and then immediately roll after, you'll never get hit. Defeating the monsters rescues the missing child, which turns into a spear. Next, we're told to follow the sound of water. An easy puzzle. Walk over to the water and press E to be teleported to a different portion of the map. Here, we must navigate an elementary level maze, pulling levers to open doors. After that, unsurprisingly, we have some more platforming. I noticed here that the shadow below you when mid-air is now appearing, despite being missing on the previous experiences I played. This shadow seems to be pretty inconsistent, which is not good considering that this is a 3D platforming game. When compared to classics like Super Mario 64 or Banjo-Kazooie, the Sandbox almost feels prehistoric. It's also pretty easy to take unintended routes due to the buggy collision. The distance granted by a sprinting jump allows you to bypass invisible walls in many experiences, completely avoiding puzzles or otherwise important progress checks. Apparently, this is a long-running issue with the game, as highlighted by discussions in the game's Discord server. Certain events will award prizes based on leaderboard placement, ranked by the fastest completion time. However, if you are determined to have exploited or taken unintended routes, you'll be banned from receiving rewards in the future. This is especially problematic considering the lack of transparency around these bans. Usually, when someone is saying that they're banned unfairly, I'm hesitant to believe them. But this seems to be such a common occurrence that they can't all be cheating. Players have resorted to recording all of their gameplay so they can send it to support staff when they inevitably get banned, only to have their tickets immediately closed and marked as resolved anyway. Hell, even one of the Sandbox's own ambassadors shared that they were unfairly banned. Additionally, if you mention being banned or criticize the team for banning you in the Discord, you'll get banned from there as well. You actually can't say anything negative about the Sandbox in their server. It's one of the first rules. But that's par for the course for a crypto game, so nothing out of the ordinary. Needless to say, anytime a game is offering a monetary incentive just for playing it, you're going to attract the lowest common denominator. You'll inevitably be flooded with players who want to cheat, exploit, or bot their way into draining your funds as fast as possible. But that's besides the point. If your game is so unpopular, the only way people will play it is because you're waving a $5 bill in front of their face, then you've got bigger problems. Oh, but you probably won't even make any money in the cases where you do qualify for an award. This is because many of the sponsored events require you to purchase a specific NFT in order to participate. But remember, you own this $50 NFT forever, so it's totally worth it. Who am I kidding? Nobody believes this anymore, right? Ugh, I hope not. Jumping back to the mediocre platforming puzzle, I reach the end of the gauntlet and interact with a statue, which teleports me back to the plaza. Time for a boss fight. The gameplay footage should really speak for itself here. Everything about this game seems to be pushing the engine to the limits, and the boss fight is no exception. Attack a power crystal, walk over to a button, and press E. Anything in this game that isn't just walking around and speaking to NPCs feels wrong, although it's kind of hard to put it into words. It's like the engine is actively working against customization. You can run Doom inside of Minecraft, but the Sandbox can barely run itself. Disappointed with this sponsored event, I made an honest attempt to try and find something more innovative made in the Sandbox. In the process, I played over 20 different player-created experiences. Here are my findings. Astro Archaeologist is an isometric action-adventure experience. They moved the camera, allowing a new point of view, but the actual gameplay itself remains unchanged. Some of the puzzles here require you to push pillars around. This is done by making the pillars NPCs that you can speak to, and depending on which dialogue option is chosen, the pillars will move in that direction. There's also a magic system, which can be used to activate switches. Magic is selected by opening a dialogue box and then choosing which spell you want to use. But you don't really need to activate these switches, since you can just jump over the puzzles due to the shoddy collision detection. Honestly, this experience is seriously impressive, and you'll understand why once I show you the creation tools. But I gotta say, if you're willing to go through the level of effort required to create your game in the Sandbox, you're just wasting time. Clearly, you're talented enough to figure out how to use a real game engine, so you'd be far better off in the long run just using that. Especially since the Sandbox, at its best, is still jankier than your average Unity asset flip. Anyway, I randomly had a prompt appear telling me to press E to travel, and so of course I pressed E. This was a mistake, as apparently this popped up because I had reached the edge of the plot of land. I am now traveling to the next plot, which in this case was something called
Sigma Island Mysteries.
After a daunting 6-minute load time, I'm introduced to the most egregious abuse of post-processing I've seen in my life. And there's no way to turn this off. There actually aren't any graphic settings besides high, medium, or low. Ugh, get me out of here. Next up, The Walking Dead Through the Tower. As expected, this is basically the same thing as every other Sandbox experience, except with a Walking Dead theme. It's surprisingly high quality, but ultimately this is just a glorified walking simulator designed to sell Walking Dead NFTs. Follow a linear path, press a button, talk to an NPC. Standard Sandbox slop at this point. For my final experience before trying to create my own, I chose a tower defense minigame. And who would have guessed, it's barely functional. The towers are unable to attack properly due to the piss-poor networking, making the game unplayable. Like I said, I played over 20 of these, and while I only mentioned a few of them, those were by far the best. If you don't believe me, yeah, go ahead, try them yourself, but don't say I didn't warn you. And trust me, it's not even bad enough to be funny. There's more entertainment value in trying to census a beehive. But we can't place all of our blame on the creators. It's obvious that there's some serious flaws with the tools provided to them. While limitation may breed creativity, there's absolutely a point in which limitations are so strong that creativity withers on the vine. The Sandbox offers two creation tools for asset and game development. VoxEdit, a voxel-based 3D modeling and animating software, and the Sandbox Game Maker, a no-code required experience creation tool. VoxEdit can actually be used as a standalone modeling program, allowing you to export models in OBJ, DAE, or GLTF file formats. As far as usability goes, it's surprisingly not half bad. Some of the hotkeys are a bit unconventional and the interface is unpolished, but that's really the bulk of my complaints. Considering this is designed for people without any previous modeling experience, it's not the worst thing in the world. You're also able to rig and animate models using the tool, and it even has support for inverse kinematics. Unfortunately, due to the relative unpopularity of the Sandbox, there aren't a whole lot of tutorials outside of the official documentation. But in general, it's a relatively usable platform, allowing anyone to easily create voxel-based models. And if you're serious about creating for the Sandbox and you hate this program, you can import Vox files from Magicavoxel. One of the biggest selling points of the Sandbox is the fact that you can monetize your content by minting it as an NFT. For the purpose of an example, I created this little creature here, and now I want to sell it as an NFT so other people can use it in their own experiences. But in classic crypto fashion, this is far easier said than done. In order to mint one of your creations as an NFT, you must first sacrifice a catalyst. Catalysts indicate the rarity of the NFT, and I'm sure they do other things, but I don't care enough to learn what. The cheapest one costs about $1 on OpenSea, meaning that you're required to use crypto to purchase it. As far as I could tell, there is no way to purchase these directly from the Sandbox using a credit card, so you're on your own trying to buy crypto here. Allow me to summarize my experience trying to mint an NFT. First, I go to OpenSea, create a MetaMask wallet, and use the Buy Crypto button to buy $1 worth of Ethereum so I can get a catalyst. Well, too bad, because the minimum amount you can purchase with a credit card is $30. Well, that's way too much, considering nobody was ever going to buy this NFT anyway. After a bit of searching around, I couldn't find any other websites with a lower minimum. Okay, fine, I'll use Coinbase instead, and then I'll transfer the Ethereum from my Coinbase wallet to my OpenSea wallet. Well, I don't have a Coinbase account, so I have to create one, which involves giving them my full name, address, and last 4 digits of my social security number. Great, I've created my account and it's time to buy some crypto, and now I have to wait for my account to get approved. This could take a few days, so check back later. Alright, I give up. I'll just spend the $30 and use my credit card. And the purchase was declined. Let's try another card. Nope, declined again. I then got a pop-up telling me that I have a higher chance of getting the purchase approved if I use a debit card. Well, I'm not giving them my debit card, so no thank you. The average user would have just quit at the first step. The barrier to entry here is far too high, and the incentive to push through that barrier is non-existent. This game is nowhere near good enough to incentivize the average gamer to deal with the never-ending barrage of problems presented by crypto. We're living in a world where games like Fortnite allow you to make a one-click purchase using a credit card. Imagine a kid trying to convince their mom to scan her ID and enter her social security number so they can buy $30 worth of sand tokens to get an NFT. If I ever did that when I was a kid, my mom would have taken the computer away and scolded me for visiting scam websites. Enough said. Alright, that's enough of that. Let's make a game of our own. The Sandbox game maker is marketed as a no-code game maker, comparable to Roblox. But after spending about an hour playing around with it, I disagree. This is not a game engine, and as a tool, it's so far behind Roblox that they're not even worth comparing. This is really nothing more than a level editor, with a basic logic system that allows you to slightly modify the game rules. You might be thinking, well, Little Big Planet 2 had a level editor, and people made some pretty crazy things with that, but slow down for a second. This is an NFT game we're talking about here. You're gonna have to lower your expectations quite a bit. My first impression from this tool is that it is overly confusing. They don't use the common names for components or behaviors you'd see in other game engines, which can cause confusion to experienced developers. The Sandbox game maker is pretty much impossible to figure out how to use on your own, as there's no tutorial, guide, or any sort of direction upon launching it. While they have documentation on their website, it's lacking to say the least. Let's take a look at the page for creating game logic. We've got climbing, doors and chests, dialogue strings, quest systems, quizzes, broken link, button and platform, collectible, and broken link again. Then, at the bottom, they basically just admit they gave up and say, go look at the Discord. The official tutorials on the Sandbox YouTube channel might as well not exist, as they're all basic things such as how to rotate the camera or how to move the camera faster by holding shift. I'm not even joking, they literally have a 2-minute long tutorial explaining how to zoom in. I get that we gotta cover the basics, but you need to put in a little more effort than this. Remember, this is a game made by an alleged multi-billion-dollar corporation. After spending about an hour attempting to teach myself to create a game, I came to the conclusion that this is a waste of time. I know, I'm being negative, but as someone who has free will, I see no reason to spend my already limited time learning how to use this. Besides, a lot of very important features seem to be missing entirely. For example, there is no way to detect mouse input or to modify the UI. Therefore, if you wanted to make a menu or something, you'd have to use a dialog box, which looks like this. Disastrous. Additionally, there is no functionality for ranged weapons or projectiles, so if you want to have either of those things in your game, then you're going to need to figure out how to fake it. Here is how you would create a projectile in the Sandbox. You create a physics object and then you spawn another physics object inside of it. This will cause the object to glitch out and go flying through the air, thus creating a projectile. Yes, this is the official workaround to creating something as basic as a projectile. I hope you can understand what I'm getting at here. While it's certainly possible to create something inside of the Sandbox, you're going to need to use hacky fixes like this at every step, resulting in a tremendous time investment to create a game that likely nobody will ever play. Besides, since every experience must be built on a plot of land, you're limited as to how large of an experience you can build. Larger experiences will require bigger plots of land, which cost more money. But even more limiting than that is the maximum amount of objects allowed per plot. In order to avoid performance issues, strict limits have been placed on how many objects you can use per experience. For example, you can only have 51 moving platforms per game, or only 19 if those platforms move between more than 2 waypoints. But again, this is still in alpha testing, so maybe they'll improve the performance later on. One can only hope. Regardless, once you've created your experience, you're able to publish it to the gallery page. The gallery is only accessible via the Sandbox Game Maker app, which is a separate download from the base game. This means that there is little to no room for organic discovery, as you'll need to tell people the name of your experience so they can search for it. That giant map on the home page? Well, publishing there is restricted to landowners. Currently, the cheapest plot of land is $561. But wasn't the point of the Sandbox that you can make money making games? The main avenue for monetizing your experiences, at this time, is through NFT-gated content. This means that players will only be able to access your experience or a certain part of it if they own an NFT you created. But that's pretty much it. Plus, the only way you can get paid is via crypto, so you're going to have to go through the KYC approval when you want to cash out, which, depending on where you live, might mean you need to be 18 or older. In comparison, Roblox allows anyone over the age of 13 to monetize their games. Regardless, it's still free to create and publish games on Roblox, while on the Sandbox, you'll need to buy a $560 NFT in order to publish your game to the homepage. Okay, this video has already gone on far longer than I originally planned, so let's get started with wrapping things up. The success of the Sandbox, from a popularity point of view, is questionable. According to their own metrics, they had 39,000 active users in 2022, but I was unable to find a recent number published by the developers. DappRadar, an independent website, shows a laughable 71 daily active users, but I'm not really sure how much I trust that either. A better metric, in my opinion, would be to look at social media posts regarding the Sandbox. If you go on YouTube and type in the Sandbox and sort by newest, you'll quickly see that there isn't really a whole lot of content being made for the game. Of the few videos there are, almost all of them have less than 1,000 views, and most of them are by people who are sponsored. Twitter is nothing but bots, so we won't look at that, but the official Sandbox subreddit is essentially dead, with barely 5 posts made per week. So, what gives? How has this game managed to garner a $4 billion valuation? For some comparison, that's twice as much as what Microsoft paid for Minecraft in 2014. Are we delusional for thinking that this game is terrible? No. In fact, I think the opposite is true. The people who are spending money in this game are the victims of an echo chamber. Just like with any other crypto game, the community surrounding the Sandbox is a close-knit circle of individuals who have spent hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars hoping for a return on investment. Of course they're going to ravenously defend the game. My videos showcase many examples. Fans of the Sandbox have been fed a lethal dose of copium, and with criticism and negative discourse being taboo topics, the echo chamber is only reinforced. Taking a step back, let's look at the bigger picture. The Sandbox was originally a mobile game created by an independent developer by the name of PixOwl. In 2018, PixOwl was acquired by Animoca Brands, a Web3 and crypto-focused venture capital firm. 6 years and hundreds of millions of dollars later, the Sandbox is still in an alpha state, with no clear path to release in sight. They've partnered with hundreds of brands and sold over 100,000 plots of virtual land, but after 3 years of alpha, less than 1% of landowners have even begun to create content. And despite the alpha label, new in-game items and microtransactions are released on a monthly basis. The game was pitched as an innovative foray into the future of technology, powered by the freedom of cryptocurrency and user-generated content. An exciting premise, but in reality, it's nothing more than a handful of forgettable sub-10-minute experiences with gameplay comparable to a Wii shovelware title. The cryptocurrency aspects of the game create a frustrating learning curve, as well as an outlandish cost to entry. And as far as return on investment goes, both token and land values have held a continued downward trend ever since the bubble burst in 2021. Does this result surprise me? No, not at all. The Metaverse was never going to happen. It was always something that corporations and overzealous buzzword hucksters praised as the future. But we never saw real organic interest from users, let alone any sort of adoption. The Metaverse was designed for corporations, as a way to monetize every aspect of our lives on the internet. I mean, seriously, virtual land? You mean to tell me that the internet now requires you to buy land? Give me a break. It was an expensive experiment, and billions of dollars were essentially flushed down the drain to create this. But here we are. This is the Metaverse, and it's a glorified billboard. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. What do you think of the Sandbox? Does this look like something you'd be interested in playing? If you're someone who plays Roblox, how does this compare? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. It is with a heavy heart that I announce I have once again used all of the money given to me by the generous members of the Bag Holders Club to feed my crippling e-waste addiction. I'm going to need to purchase 7 additional storage units before the end of the month because I have 45 pallets of HD DVD players on their way to my house. I know, it's a problem, but you're the ones funding it. Anyway, thanks for the money. Goodbye.